friends, welcome back to another stellar, out of this world, stupendous episode of the Film Alchemist podcast. Don't rain on this parade, sir. We'll get to that in a moment. Just, I mean, truly a tribute to the art of cinema. All right, welcome to the Film Alchemist podcast, guys. The show where we take the movies we love, break them apart to find out what gives them their magic. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, joined as always by my friend, co-host, and really mean guy who won't give me rations.
Oh, me? Alex Dandino.
All right, guys, before today's just a wonderful...
Just a real critique on...
No.
Western...
No,
sorry,
that sounds serious.
Theory.
No
film theory, my
Just
bad.
a fucking pixie stick down the gullet of joy. That's what we are. Guys, it's official! The Film Alchemist have made their way to Patreon. That's right, patreon.com/Film Alchemist Pod. We assure you it's the absolute best way to support us and the show. It's the absolute best way to get the show that you want and deserve. Guys, for as little as $1 a month, you can join the community, get in with us, see what we're working on, meet our amazing community members that we have already gathered. And as you climb the very official and scientific Highlander tier ranking system, you can select the movies you want to hear specifically in a Patreon exclusive library, which, by the way, has a limited time offer. Only the next X amount of patrons are going to get the on-demand episodes, as it were, and then we will be switching up the tiers a little bit to another exciting set of rewards, right? Keep it fresh for everyone. So, guys, get in now and let us know which movies you want.
Can I just say, we have fantastic patron exclusives. Like, it is awesome, the picks we're getting.
Yes, and we have awesome ones to come, too. So stay tuned, guys. For those of you who support us, thank you. You know it means the world to us. For those of you who are about to, thank you as well. Make sure you go to YouTube. Smash that subscribe button on the channel, Film Alchemist. You can see our faces over there. We're rolling out right now
from Whoville.
I know we got probably like the most hair in the game, I would imagine. And you can see that, right? You can see us twirl it up. You can see us maybe sometimes accidentally eat a little bit, right? Do some witchcraft. That's neither here nor there. But yeah, Film Alchemist, make sure you subscribe because we might have some cool new stuff coming there as well. The email, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. We're on all the socials you're on. We're very easy to get a hold of, and we love to hear from you guys. Also, something free you can do that helps us out. Make sure you leave us a rating and review wherever you find the show. Jam the 5 stars. Write a nice sentence or two about why you like us. Share us with your friends. Guys, help us defeat the algorithmic corporate boot, military boot, I guess, for this movie. It's keeping us down.
Francoist boot.
Yeah, so help us out, guys. Right. You thought business was rough. Wait till we get to this fucking movie. Guys, this month, the pod digs Del Toro. As many people do, right? We are not exclusive in our love of G. Di Toro. Great filmmaker. Today we're talking about what is probably his magnum opus, Pan's Labyrinth. This is a movie... This was a really fun movie for me in my personal life, right? I went to see this one in the theater. It was a very memorable night. I remember exactly where I sat, what theater I was in, who I saw it with, because I watched a guy who had always kind of made movies I liked, right? But nothing that fully blew my hair back, right? Like, I like some of his shit. It wasn't mind-blowing to my younger self yet, right? I was with him. I'd always hoped. When I saw Pan's Labyrinth, it was the classic hero's journey, man. It was, Arthur pulling the sword from the stone. It was Goku going Super Saiyan. It was Neo stopping the bullets. This was Del Toro staking the flag and saying, I am right now making one of the best films you are ever likely to see, and you're here to witness it. And to this day, Pan's Labyrinth is a film, well, just soul-crushingly brutal. Never loses 1 ounce of its magic or shine every time I watch it. Every time I watch it, I am transported and full of the love of cinema as much as I was on that very first time, which I think is about as rare of an achievement as any movie can make. Alex, opening thoughts on Pan's Labyrinth.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you said it best. Like, really what it is it's Guillermo del Toro getting to do exactly what he wants. And, like, not only that, Guillermo del Toro making, truly probably his magnum opus, but also spending all his political, like, movie political capital in the right way. Like, this is after Hellboy. So, like, he's done Blade 2, which was a success, Hellboy, which was a success, and also, like, the odds stacked against him going in. Like, you're going to make two decent, like, pretty popular comic book properties, like, pretty popular comic book movies. Like, Hellboy didn't do as well, but in later years, it's done much better. You're going to leave those and do, like, a hugely metaphoric, surrealist, sad fantasy film that is not going to necessarily put asses in the seats. Isn't just this, like, big blockbuster thing, but you're going to make something that, while it's, like, huge in its scope and this beautiful effects, beautiful animatronics, beautiful everything, really, the story is so sublime. That's the kind of movie you want to go out and make. And everybody's thinking, oh, well, it's just going to be this weird, like, effects thing. It's strangely intimate. I think that's always the thing I come back to when I watch it. And I think I've seen it now, like, I think I've seen it once a year. Like, it's not even a movie that I try to watch. It's just a movie that, like, oh, I haven't seen Pan's Labyrinth in a while. And and I realize it's been about a year. But, like, it is, like, this strangely intimate movie because you know where it's coming from. And this is what Guillermo del Toro does better than anybody, I think, is you know where it's coming from, and you know it's coming from this place of just, like, unbridled passion for not just the story he's telling, but just movies in general. That is, like, the awe-inspiring thing about Guillermo del Toro. That's why we're doing this month. He is just an awe-inspiring person, and Pan's Labyrinth is a cut above the rest as far as that goes.
To me, all of the things that I love most about his films, right, really metastasize in this film. You get this
bad word, but yes.
Perhaps like Jell-O in the fridge, they turn into a nice jiggly, tasty lump,
gelatinous.
Right? That seems worse to me, right? So I went somber. That's my bad.
I would go Jell-O over metastasis. I'm not gonna lie, but I get what you're getting.
Agree to disagree, man. Magic's not real for us either, Alex. No, I'm just kidding. But there is this wonderfully rich love story, right, between a girl and her mother in the midst of a world that is doing everything it can to rip the human out of these people. That is the thing, again, that I think always shines in his best films, right, is as you see people making the choices to become monsters that ignore the basis of what makes us human, right? Mm-hmm. There's always some relationship at the core that keeps that fire burning, right? And as we see this girl walk through the world, right, Ophelia actually brings out that in several other characters, right? She is the spark that lights these other torches that lead to an explosive ending, right? And then you throw that into, again, it might be a bit on the nose, right? This actual storybook diversion and escape from the horrors that are everywhere. Mm-hmm. And it reminds you, it's hard to watch a movie like this where these things are occurring around this little girl. The kind of things that, thank God, most of us can't even comprehend, right? We only see them on a screen from safety. And so it's just this absolute razor's edge that he kind of dances on masterfully, right? Between when it's getting too fucking brutal, we go and examine some of the brutality and themes with a giant fucking burping frog, right? And it's what he does so well. And he just found this kind of amalgam of all of that in this movie.
Totally. I think that's a good, the burping frog, I think, is probably a great example of what Guillermo del Toro does best, is like, it is this like element of whimsy inside like this huge layer of danger. And it's like, and not just that, and especially in Pan's Labyrinth, it's the danger of not just this world, like this fantasy world, but then on top of that, the layer of the layer that lives above it is the real world that is like factual, true terror. Like that is like something that you can research. You can look this up. Like I was fascinated. This is the time I've watched it, and like it's the first time I've actually been like, I don't know where this fits in history. Like I know it takes place in Francoist Spain, and I had to really look up like what
they
it is.
They mentioned D-Day in a newspaper article,
right?
Yeah,
like not to say I don't know where it takes place in history, is in like timeline wise, but more.
Oh, dude, I'm the same. I was like, wait, fighting in Spain, right? And I had to go. I'm a bit of a dummy, though. I'm a bit
right.
Of a dummy.
I don't know anything about what happened in Spain during the 1940s, so like I'm literally like reading the Wikipedia and reading other things like, oh, wow, this is like, these guys are supposed to be these offshoots of fascism. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, you can kind of get that just because like it's the 40s and they're brutal. So you assume everyone's like Nazi adjacent if they're bad, which like, isn't a bad thing. But I also think, and this is something I thought about when I was looking that up, that is what Guillermo del Toro is playing on too. And it's genius because what he doesn't have to do is explain who these people are. It just has to seem that way and be set in that era for you to go, probably a Nazi. Like it's the perfect way to not even like, it's the perfect way to not overly explain something, but also to not have to actually explain anything. We all are familiar with people in the military who are brutal in the 40s. You're like, I think that's a Nazi probably. Like it's a perfect.
You give it a whiff of World War II,
exactly.
And then you honestly just watch this kind of war criminal running around, and you're like, I get it, right? But I because the movie starts again, right? Spain 44, military resistance, got it. And then we just see a picture of this little girl with the bloody nose, and so it's. I always think the best moments in war movies, right, are not the big like storming of wherevers.
No.
Bring it in as tight as you can on the face of an innocent civilian, man, and see what that does to them, right? Again, this is a dreaded image that I always forget that they start with that image, right? But what we learn is, and then instead of going more into the military stuff, right, we do this, there once was a princess who dreamed of living in the human world. What a wonderful sentiment in the time of war, right? When everything is dehumanized. Yeah. She wants to live amongst humans, right? She escapes. She forgets where she came from. Someday her soul will return. Mm-hmm. And again, in doing that storybook, running away and telling us this fictionalized tale, right, that we again see as a fictionalized tale within a fictionalized tale, we see the entire story of this film, right? A girl who wants to live among humans. She's not. She is forgetting who she is, and she needs to come back, right? The mom is pregnant and very sick. She finds a statue. We instantly see a bug. There is this, these massive real-world consequences mixed with a magical statue and bug. And so right away, we're setting the tone that magic and reality, while very separate, live in the exact same space.
Right. Which I think is what makes this. That's what heightened the tension is heightened almost immediately with it. Before we've even gotten into the plot, the tension is heightened already because we realize there's a conflict between fantasy and the real world. Not like a conflict that we already know exists because we live in the real world, but more to the point, like the concept of like the whimsy and the wonder of the beyond is in direct conflict with what's about to come down the pipeline, which is war and people hiding out from war and all the complications that come from being in this situation. And then like you like get into it with Ophelia and her mother, and you're like, man, there is so much for this like little girl. I think that's always the thing, is like there's so much for Ophelia to like put on her plate as a child, and you're like, that is the thing that I think most adults relate to, is having to be the person you are. And you like funnel all this insecurity into this like 11-year-old girl every time, man.
And
every time
it's
it gets
even more primal than that in a way. Like we spent the time before we recorded today watching and laughing at me from 20 years ago in a short student film, right? And you look back and you're like, look at that fucking child, right? And so I think at a base level, we're all trained that when we see children in movies, especially children that are very imaginative and this and that, or weird or unique, Very much unlike in real life, when we see them in movies, we want to protect them a lot, right?
Right.
And so watching the dynamic between Ophelia and her mother in this film is a really interesting series of choices, right? Because as we're going out and she's not doing well with her pregnancy, right? Her body's failing.
She's
Ophelia's
like,
father's dead. Yeah. And in this moment, she takes the time to say, Ophelia, aren't you a little too old to be filling your head with this nonsense? And we're sitting there looking around, and if you've seen the movie, this line hits extra hard, right? Because you know it's coming. You're like, in this world, what else should a child be doing but burying themselves in these books of fantasy? And again, this is one of those kind of fairy tales or fables that is a little more to the old style, where there's real scary consequences and monsters around the turns. But still, why wouldn't you fucking do this, right?
Right.
The girl, and this is one of the shots where it's like, this fucking guy, man, nails it, right? The introduction to the captain in this movie is perfect. Because not only does he get out and he's all fucking spit shined and he smiles at her, but like, take the seat. I can walk. Do it for me, right? And there's just a little bit of like, oh, okay. He's kind of taking control of her body. That's gross. When Ophelia gets out, she can't shake his hand because she's holding her fantasy books. She holds up the wrong hand and he fucking snatches it. Like he's going to break her hand, and he goes, this is the wrong hand.
Yeah.
And fucking chucks her hand aside. And you're like, oh, fuck this guy for the whole movie.
Yeah.
Like this
Again,
fucking rat bastard.
And you don't need to know anything about his politics, about anything that goes on in his life, any of the other horrible things, by the way, that he does in this movie. You just need to see that one thing, and that's all you need to know.
He sees that girl, and his reaction is Predator. And she, in one hand, she's literally holding fantasy, and in the other hand, the hard fucking crushing gloved grip of a military war criminal pressing down. Not many images in movies do that much work, and it's wonderful.
Not much opening 15 does that much work with telling you, like, pitting every piece on the board properly and getting you primed for the story that's ahead. It's again,
right,
it's
so
just
let's focus in, right? There's a lot in this movie. I want to talk a little bit about Ophelia and her mom right up front.
Okay.
Because again, this is the journey that is at the core of this film to me.
Right.
What do you make of... There are obviously two people that see the world in a very different way, right? They both suffered the same tragedy and the loss of father, but are reacting very differently. Not just with age, but just kind of worlds colliding in mindset. What did you take away this viewing about their dynamic?
I mean, for me, it's interesting. I actually think that, I don't know, this time I almost feel like Ophelia addresses the real world a little bit better than her mother in a lot of ways. It's hard to explain, but for me, Ophelia is already such a protector. Like there's so much of this like not only of her unborn, not her unborn sibling, but of her mother herself. They're in a, stranger in a strange land, a new place. This viewing, I did notice, like, the mother doesn't necessarily live in a fantasy world, but she's fading so fast and so quickly. Like, it's almost like it doesn't even matter. Like, she becomes this skeleton of her former self anyways. Yeah. And Ophelia already feels like she's out on her own. So much of that relationship is so important, but also is so superficially important to what I think ends up being Ophelia's major arc, which is that she has to take on these mantles of responsibility herself, not necessarily for the sake of her family, but for the sake of her own sanity in a lot of ways.
I kind of love the idea that Del Toro went so combative with this relationship, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just in a very real way, right? Because to your point, this is a mom who's fading fast. And I think she's dealing with the massive crushing weight of, I'm going to leave this girl in this world alone. That
not just alone, but with this guy.
Now, see, this is the fucking core of this, which makes it hard for me as an adult now. Because I can't help but feel slightly hardened towards the mother's plight. right? There's a line in the
How
film when she says to Ophelia, right? When Ophelia's like, why did you have to get married again, right? And we get the very specific insinuation, why'd you have to marry this fucking cock? And you're like, great question. I'd like to know that too, Mal. And she just says this line that I think all of us can absolutely sympathize with. I've just been alone too long. And as you get older, you'll understand, right? And then she says, it wasn't easy for me either.
Right.
Perfect. I totally get it. Her insistence on, hey, call the captain father. I want you to look pretty for the captain. It's an understandable choice that she has made. And there's even this weird subplot that I've always questioned in the movie that they somewhat hint at, that the captain may have known her father and come to kill his ass so that his wife would be available.
Oh, yeah. I always assumed it was like this Sweeney Toad kind of thing, you know?
That's what because at first I thought it was just like, that's like a really fucking sad meet cute.
I always thought that was the bit.
But you're like, oh, okay. Because like, he just started coming back after your husband
I've always
died?
thought that was the bit because the way Ophelia pits herself against him from the jump. Not just because like,
well,
and it's
I
not
think
even
it's,
like,
the war killed my father is what we hear, and he represents the war. But there is these weird lines, like when she's telling the story and he gets like, he recoils from her. And he's like, my dumb wife thinks this shit is interesting at dinner party. I'm like, all right, fucking fancy pants. Like, I don't know what great stories you're bringing to the fold. All you seem to do is be talking shop, you fucking asshole. But anyways, the mom has made this choice, is that she would rather give her child up to this oppressive military man who might have fucking hurt their husband, right? Because she might not be there. And so then it's this psychology of, do you think this is because the mother's like, Ophelia needs to be with this man to protect my son in case I don't make it? Or, you know what? At least she should be safe because he's the one putting the boot on others. It's this weird tightrope of her motivation to me.
I feel like, to be honest with you, like the way you've described it, to me, it's straight down the middle, honestly. Like,
it's hard, man. And not that like you can't put yourself in her struggle, but it's hard because you want to just embrace this mom who's in this terrible situation.
Well, like you and I have both had experiences in our married lives where it's like, like you've had to have that conversation with yourself about like, oh wow, this might be like, how do I, providing for my family, that kind of thing. I remember when Andrea gave birth, we had a very scary, like birth scenario. Like Henry was premature, that kind of stuff, and I had to do this sort of thing where I had to go through like 3 horrifying scenarios really fast, and one of them was like, what if my wife is gone and I have to take care of this kid? Yeah, like. How do I do? And so and then that's like a horrible thing that you have to like it's one of those things you have to address though. And scary things like that sometimes happen. But like for me,
dude, did I ever tell you mine? So I had 2 really bad ones. So right before Hunter was born, I wasn't sleeping, right? Cause I was like, what if it pops off? I gotta be ready.
Right.
And I turned on TV and I was like, oh shit, Jersey Girl's on. I need a laugh. Oof. Just like brushed over me that the start of that movie is like J-Lo dies. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God, women can die in childbirth. Like, it's just one of those things that like you put so far from your eyes, like, oh fuck. And then when Logan was born, I left all my shit by the front door. I had just gone to the bookstore that day and I was like, all right, I'll leave a book there because I'm going to have a lot of time in the hospital. As I ran out in the dark, I just grabbed the top book and it was Pet Sematary. So I'm reading Pet Sematary in the room waiting for my son to be born. I'm like, there is some kind of like horrible, like, I'm just like fucking whipping myself mentally for being a lot of
self-flagellation.
Dude, but I mean, so again, like you said, right? Yours was a lot scarier than mine. Mine were very self-inflicted. But it's what do you make of this position that the mom finds herself in? Because she is protective of Ophelia to the captain.
Sure. Like, to me, it's this, she's, like we were saying, it's this tightrope. Like, you want your child to be provided for, so you make a deal with the devil, so to speak, and you go with this guy who probably is not a super great dude. But
You want to know the real question I had watching it this time? Is I was like, I would give anything. Be like, Guillermo, I don't know what you drink, right? Are you a lager man, right? Do you like espresso? Like, what do you want to drink, right? Do you want to drink fucking like goat milk? Like, I'll import it from wherever you want, right? What do you want? You want to drink like crushed up caterpillars? I don't know what your thing is. You seem like an interesting guy.
right.
I need 10 minutes of your time. And he goes, all right, Joshua, like, let's talk. And I'm like, cool.
Joshua.
The only secret I want to know from your vast knowledge of all things cinema, walk me through in your mind. Write a scene for me, Guillermo. And he goes, yes, yes. And I go, write a scene for me. That is, how does the captain fuck? I was watching this movie. I can't fathom how that guy fucks to make a child, right?
Right.
This guy, all we ever see this guy doing is going through these robot-like fucking machinations of his day-to-day. I want to see how this guy fucks real bad. Am I the only one? If someday I become very successful, I'm hitting Del Toro up for that fucking scene. Write me a scene.
It's fair. It's weird, but fair.
You don't want to know like a little?
Well, here's the thing.
Like, is he the one who's like, whip me and I'll call you daddy? Is like, you fucking pull my dick under my cheeks and like yank it real hard. Like, I don't know. Like, is he that guy?
Here's the thing. I don't wonder because I just assume I'm assuming it's aggressive and very short. That's always my assumption when it comes to guys like this.
It feels that way where he's like, he's watching the broken watch.
I do not imagine him being like a super cool Lothario. Like, for me, I would imagine like he takes the knife she gets from the Faun and like he's one of those guys who like holds it to your neck while you do it. While he like does a 30-second 2-pump jump thing. That's like how he does it. Like, he has to hold a gun to his head or something like that.
Yeah, like he's in mortal danger.
Yeah,
he's like, I'm a real soldier, daddy.
Yeah.
Oh!
Like, he's like he's like Richie Aprile. Like, he's holding a gun to his head, like doing the whole.
Or he's like, fucking pin my medals to my actual tit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Pin
okay,
my
we
medals-
got
pin
really
my
off.
medals to my bow, say.
Tell me I'm a soldier, daddy. Tell me I'm a soldier. And then he like sits on a grenade. I don't know.
We're so far off the point of this.
This is why Del Toro's the one I want to write the scene, right? Yeah, okay, let's bring this back in.
Yeah.
I think the mother and Ophelia's journey is most wonderfully encapsulated in the dress.
Yes.
She just wants her books.
Great visual cue.
Yeah. And the mother is like, do you know what I would have done as a little girl to get this dress? Do you know what I had to put to the captain's a noose to fucking get you to this house? Never mind. Again, we're writing a different movie. What do you... Because I feel like this is where their exact opposite forces really meet, right? And Ophelia going out into the mud. There's that great shot before she goes down to see the fucking toad, right? She sees her shoes are covered in mud. Mm-hmm. She knows to turn fucking back. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about what the dress meant to you this time.
Oh, man, it's the... I mean, it means the same thing to me every time. For me, it's this... It's the... Oh, fuck, I just lost what I was going to say. In my... Oh, it... I mean, it's the visual cue for the... It's that... Damn it, I just lost it. Oh, I had this
too busy thinking about the captain getting
God damn it, you have like the... You get me... Like this torqued captain just beating cheeks is just... No.
Do you think he wears those really douchey small sunglasses during it? Neither here nor there. Talk to me more about the dress.
I think he wears his hat backwards. No. For me, it's the dress is like it's the last step. It's that step you take into fantasy before you, because like those shoes being muddy, that is always to me the visual cue. She's like, something is different here. Like things are about to change. So like for me, the dress is always the temptation to basically to decide to shoulder the responsibility that your mother shouldered. Like, so for Carmen to take on this responsibility of like, protecting her family by getting with someone who more than likely killed her actual husband and also is like kind of a shitbag person altogether, but provides quite a bit of stability and safety net for her children. In that same way, Ophelia looks at her muddy shoes and the dress, and it's the same thing. It's like, do I take that sacrifice? Do I try to find another way to sacrifice? Like, do I try to find another way to shoulder this responsibility? Like, and it's not even like this. Because in every regard, in the three tasks, like this one, the Pale Man, and then obviously the last one. But either way, she always kind of fucks up in these tasks. Like it is like shouldering this responsibility of an adult while also still keeping the precociousness of a child in a lot of ways. It's very, again, like it's a very hard tightrope to walk. But for me, it's Ophelia addressing in her own way what is beyond might be the thing that can save her family, though. I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know. A very messy way to put it.
The mud on the shoes is wonderful, right? Because it is the real world encroaching on fantasy, right?
Yeah.
The dress and the shoes are the fantasy, right? When she's like, "I want you to look good for the captain," and the captain sees her out just fucking drinking that straight from the teat juice, right, with the stuff floating in it. And I was like, maybe a cup, like, I don't know,
strainer of some kind, anything. Yeah. Do you like pulp? Are you a pulp guy? Not me.
I was like, I said milk and honey, not milk and. Good Lord, how long has that mud been caked on that teat? Good Lord. But the captain sees her and doesn't acknowledge her. And so I love the fuck you-ness of it, right? Because when they go to the bathtub and she's like, I wonder if you'll ever stop messing up, Ophelia. You've disappointed me, right? You disappointed your father, right? And she turns around. She's like, are you talking about the captain? And the mom's like, ugh. And Ophelia sits back in that bubble bath and fucking smiles like it's a problem child movie.
Yeah.
She's fucking glad.
Again,
to stick it to him.
This is that fucking like childhood whimsy thing that Guillermo del Toro just nails.
Yeah.
Like we saw it in Kronos too. Like it's the same vibe. It's the same thing. And he does such a good job of not making things are serious. Things are filled with stakes, but there's plenty of time for at least like a hint of whimsy and a hint of like, not even whimsy, but like childlike impishness almost. It's
and Ophelia is the only place we get that because everything outside
literally
of
nothing
this
else
is crushing, right? We like, for example, right? We see the captain and his fucking routine. He's getting ready, right? Walking around in his shirt that he definitely would have referred to as a wife beater, I'm sure.
No doubt.
Doing his shit, right?
Right.
And there is this horrifying scene where we see him fully unveiled, right? When he goes out and these guys are like, we caught these fuckers in the forest, right? They say they're farmers, but we don't, whatever. And they're like, hey, man, we're just out rabbit hunting, right? We're trying to find food. My daughters and wife are sick, right? Mm-hmm. And just because before he finishes the search of what is a very small satchel, very small, not very full satchel, right? No. The guy says, hey, if my father says that's what we're doing, he's telling the truth. And instead of finishing the search to see if that's true or not, the captain is like, you have fucking challenged me. He takes the bottle of wine and with the fucking circular bottom of it, caves this motherfucker's face in. So nonchalantly, so unemotionally. He's like the Terminator and just crushes this guy's face with what seems like 10 to 20 blows. While the father is just unable to even process how horrifying this is, right?
Right.
As he does, he turns and shoots this guy. He pulls out the rabbits, right? Which we find out later are too young to even fucking cook properly. And he just looks to his man and says, maybe you'll learn to search these assholes better. Doesn't care. Isn't upset at what he did. Because what he did was for those fucking men, right? That he is willing to destroy these people. And by proxy, we know there's a wife and sick daughters somewhere that aren't going to eat or have their family members back.
Right.
It is as gruesome an unveiling of a bad guy as I can remember, right? There's a lot of gruesome, like, the bad guys here. The casual nature with which this man operates.
It's pretty horrifying.
I mean, the captain is like the MVP actor of this movie. They always say that cliche, right? The best movies have the best bad guys.
But it's not just because
this qualifies for sure.
Yeah, it's the quality of viciousness that he has, and like that is the prime. He's like literally, and this guy does unspeakable things in this movie. That is so fucking disturbing. That is the one part of this movie where I rarely like, look, we've watched a lot of fucked up movies in this pod. I rarely close my eyes. I still have trouble watching that. Just
that scene is
just brutality.
It's fucking truly horrifying. Well, there's some things that you're watching some movies, right? Like when you're watching Human Centipede, it's like it's not that cringy, right? Like it's people fucking sewn to other buttholes, right? There's a level of built-in absurdity and comedy that pulls you back.
Yeah. Well, just like
that is the movie, right? For those of us that have seen like a truly brutal act of violence up close and personal, right? Like I used to be a bouncer and shit, so I've seen a lot of fights and like the horrifying consequences of physical. I think a lot of people think that fights are like They Live, where you just throw in punches for like 10 minutes and everyone's cool. You get a little, oh, my face's puffy. I mean, people can die from a punch, right? Like real actual violence is fucking scary when you see it up close.
Right.
This is one of those moments where, oh, they nailed that. Like, really to the core, scares the shit out of you. It made me want to throw up, man. But the captain, what I love about him, too, he's a classic movie bad guy. He's cold, calculating, evil at his fucking core, right? He is this, as the doctor says later, right? When he tells the doctor, you could have just done what I said. And he said, only men like you can do that, right? There's a certain, speaking of his character. What did you glean from this guy's relationship to his own father and his unborn son that he assumes is a son? He doesn't even know. When the doctor says, how do you know it's a son? Don't fuck with me. What do you make of this dynamic?
His own father?
Yeah. I mean, the thing he won't acknowledge that the father had the watch, which we've seen. He becomes a soldier just like his father, who was a general, not a captain, right? Maybe that's eating him up.
Right.
We learned that he didn't come to this post on his own accord. What do you make of this guy? The father-son dynamics of him give him this extra depth that I think a lot of militant bad guys don't get in movies.
To me, I think it has a lot to do with loyalty. And that's a weird thing to say, I guess. But this is how I'd put it. Like for instance, his reaction when the doctor, for instance, when he discovers the doctor's one of the rebels. It is this like, it's not even like, it's pretty obvious. Like we kind of know what's going to happen, like eventually, like you can't go through this entire movie and that not being the case. But to me, it being a son obviously has a lot of connotations culturally because, I'm from an Italian family. My wife's Guatemalan. Like men are, male heirs are very important in and especially in the 40s still is a very important thing. But I think it has to do with trust and loyalty because the only people you can really trust. And I think that's like the level of paranoia it takes to be this vicious a person, because we talk about this on the pod, like great villains are people who think they're right. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure that Captain Vidal knows he's not right. Like, I don't know what it is, but like something tells me.
I think he does think he's right. When he does the whole, I'm here because these people think that we are equals. We won the war.
But here's the thing. I think he's okay. I think he's okay. I'm not saying he doesn't think he's...
Okay, I see what you're saying, right? He doesn't see them as people he can do a crime to.
That's not exactly. I think it's not that he doesn't think he's wrong. It's that he doesn't care enough to... He doesn't care enough to like equate the two. Like to be wrong or right isn't a thing. It's either... It's not a matter of being wrong or right in the traditional sense that you and I would say. It's simply like, I have power. Why would I be wrong? Like... Absolute power corrupts absolute. So of course, if he's powerful, why would he be wrong? There's no point in time where he would be wrong. So like, for me, like the father-son relationship is important because it's a matter of loyalty. Like that is your blood. That is what you've made. Like, of course they will like follow you into battle. You know, you're a dad for the boys. I'm a dad to a boy. Like it's hard to describe. Like we've been doing a lot of therapy with Henry because he's speech delayed. And like they always tell me, because I have a very look, I have a lot of patience to work on. Like it's hard for me sometimes to deal with a screaming kid, but they tell me all the time, they're like, listen, you are like the hero. So your reaction to things is the thing he's mimicking. Like you have to be the person, if you want him to be the person that you want him to be, you need to be that person too. And I think that watching this movie, that is where Captain Vidal lives, is the person he wants to be is his father. And the person he wants a son to be is he wants him to be him. It's not even a matter of looking up to you, admiring you. This is about it. Respect. That's what it's about.
I think he fucking hated his father, right? He
I
disavows
think so too,
the watch thing.
But he respected him. He respects the brutality. He respects the kind of man he was. It's very different.
I think he respects
the begrudging respect.
Right, because there's that great scene when he's looking in the mirror and he does the throat slice. I think that is, he looks like his father and he's like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Because again, that's one of those acts of he's pushing it outwards, not to his own throat, right?
Right.
I think there is he hates that he wished his father was around and would care. But instead, his father only cared for Spain and the war, and now other people have this, he's a hero to us, and he feels like it was taken from him, right? So he's doing his best facsimile,
right?
And he's like, through stone cold efficiency and brutality, I will surpass him. And there is this weird, like, he seemingly is using somewhat kid gloves with the mom because she's carrying the baby.
Yeah, he has to.
And he even has that line, right? If you have to choose between her or the baby, save my son, right? So
it's a vessel. She's a vessel. She's not a person. She is a vessel carrying this person.
My question would have been, right, in his mind, if he had won and crushed the Wood Watchers, what does that kid's life look like on his 10th birthday? Right? And there is this weird, like, because he says that when he runs into battle, right? This is the only decent way to die. I think some part of him wanted to leave his son behind, right? At the end when he hands it over, he's like, tell my son, about, and they're like, no, fuck you. Your son will never know your name. What a great fucking moment.
Awesome beat.
Because fuck that guy. That is as cathartic a murder in a movie ever, especially after what we just saw him fucking do to Ophelia. Yes. But we're jumping ahead. But there is this really strange, he's obviously become this most monstrous version of his father. Mm-hmm. But it seems like he thinks he can fix it with his own son, but I think we know he won't. Well, but I think even just adding that, right, him lying about the watch, him having that extra beat gives him a little more, right?
Wasn't that always the folly of hubris, like, of being a parent, is you think that you can fix what you fucked up with your kid, and that's just not...
Hey, I'll tell you this,
that's not humanity,
as a kid
man.
Who's father willingly chose to abandon them, all the time I have the nightmare that I come to my own home and I knock on the door and my wife, who's not my wife anymore, answers the door. And she's like, what do you want? You fucking piece of shit, bum, whatever, get out of here. And I go, hey, it's me. Like, I'm here. And she goes, nope. And I look over her shoulder, and in the living room of my house, there's another guy, a better looking guy, a guy who actually has cheekbones and is wearing like a Gordon Gekko suit with perfect hair. Right. Abs that you can see through his fucking button up, right?
Right.
Like, and he's
Christian
rolling
Bale.
around. Yeah, Yes, exactly. But hopefully not as moiterous. But he's rolling around on the floor playing with my boys. Mm-hmm. And Amy just slowly shuts the fucking door in my face. This is a recurring nightmare I have. Like, when I was little, I used to have the dream that I needed to run away, but, like, no matter how fast I ran, I couldn't get any speed, right? This is the grown-up version of that, right? Please let me into my house with my own children. And they're like, no, you're gone. You don't matter to them. Right. I think that extra layer, again, it's in no way, shape, or form an excuse for what he does, but it adds an extra layer of we see what
Yeah.
how he has become this monster.
It adds the level of sympathy you need to care, and then
Yes.
to be excited when he's
And again,
executed.
why does he kill that fucker with the bottle? Because it's a son lovingly protecting his father. It's beautiful, man. This movie is just so full of wonderful stuff like that. All right.
It's true.
We've talked a long time, right?
Talked a lot about the real world. We have barely talked about
and the
fantasies.
shit with the rebels and this and that is the thinnest part, right? Mercedes is a wonderful character. The doctor are wonderful, right? When he has to go up and cut the fucking leg off, and you see them making, like, the one scene with Mercedes that is heartbreaking is when she tells her lover, you know, I'm a coward. I served that man his breakfast, but, and it's like, no, you are brave and strong, and look at what she's doing and going through. And imagine having to serve that fucking man. And she can still care for Ophelia while all this is going on, right? So that scene is devastating. Mercedes and the doctor are wonderful characters.
Right, yes.
The plot with the rebels is just not as interesting as the rest of it, right? That's kind of like how we move this thing forward, right?
Well, I think that's like, it's the real world movement of the story. It's not what we're focused on, like, at all.
Yeah.
If that's what you're, if you've globbed onto the rebel storyline of Pan's Labyrinth, I don't know. You should just maybe turn it off. Like,
the
I don't know
same guys that are like, I want a Disney Plus series called Porkins.
This is like,
I want to know about Porkins.
This is like my dad who gets upset. He doesn't like watching Inglourious Bastards, and I'm like, why? It's great. And he goes, it's factually inaccurate. And I'm like, I can't talk to you anymore. I love you, Dad, but goddamn it,
you don't say,
over
Pat. Fucking Hitler didn't die in a fire seeing fucking Easy Rider. Is that true?
If you're running an old Papa Dandino, just know he's a stickler.
Ancient Aliens has a different take, Pat. I hate to. No, I'm just kidding.
He's a stickler for the World War II.
Dude, but how about this?
Just called my dad out.
Just fucking throwing
fucking movie about
Ancient
how
Alien
shitty
bombs
dads
at
are.
Pat. Hey, Pat, fuck you. Hey, Pat, break your watch. You remember the moment you got killed on a podcast, fool? No. But Mercedes does have a wonderful beat, though, right? When the lock is not broken, right? As they've derailed a train and they go back and rob the supply room. The lock is unforced, right? They find out it's Mercedes, right? It's gut-wrenching that we know she's going to get got. She tries to escape with Ophelia. She's caught. She's going to get tortured. When she stabs that motherfucker, it's wonderful. And she's like, that's why I got you, is because you thought I was nothing. You thought I was weak. Don't you dare talk down to me. And you're like, yeah. And she fucking Joker smiles them. You're like, yeah. And then in my mind, I just go, fuck. You said you knew how to gut a pig. Why? Why? Fucking finish the job. I wanted her to come out of there like Carrie from Prom.
Yeah, I thought we were gonna get like a Johnny Depp and Sleepy Hollow moment where it just walks out and you're like, whoa.
I mean, I guess you would say had she done that, she couldn't have fled.
Not quite that movie. I get it. Then we wouldn't have gotten that fucking badass scene at the end. But
him drinking the whiskey with his fucking mouth. So good. All right, Mercedes and the doctor. When they killed the doctor, it was horrible. Gut-wrenching.
Horrifying.
R.I.P., man. Only men like you can follow.
Great scene, by the way. I do love that.
When he kills the stutterer, right? Because, oh my God, when he's like, count to 3 and I'll let you go.
Oof.
Never misses a chance to be horrible, right? And the doctor releasing him is...
That's the other mounting tension, too, is like it's this sweet mercy of him euthanizing this guy with Vidal, like...
He knows he's
shit.
Dead. He knows he's done as soon as he makes that choice. But that's what he does, man. He helps people. It's beautiful. All right. Again, we've talked a lot about this movie. We haven't talked about the main dish, the main attraction of this film, this wonderful fairy tale that is unfurling.
Do you think the reason is because it's so obvious?
What is?
I mean, obviously, like, here's the thing. We can talk about it, which obviously we will. We do.
Are you saying it's movies because we are entrenched scholars, so we are drawn like the Jaws shark to more intellectually deep waters?
Well, granted, we are basically like a couple of Pat Dandinos watching a World War II talk. But my dad listens to the pod, so this is like all the ammo I need. He does. Swear to God, I will get a call.
Paul Dandino. Paul Dandino's going to hear himself getting drive-byed on a horse as we're just cackling at his World War II hobbies. I want to know, Paul Dandino, send the show a nice message. When does the World War II thing start with dads, right? At what age do you choose Civil War or World War II, and that just becomes like a thing you do on the weekend? What age is that? Because I don't know. Maybe I'll choose like the Star Wars. I guess maybe our generation will do that because we're giant children people.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, but what I'm getting at is, do you think the reason we haven't, because like, look, we are deep into this pod at this point. Do you think the reason we haven't addressed the stuff that we love so much about this movie, which, is obviously the fantasy element, a lot of the Faun, the Pale Man, Mandrake Root stuff, like all this great iconography. Do you think the reason is because it's something that is so primordial to how you and I watch movies? It's not even that we don't want to talk about it. It's that when we talk about it, will it lose its magic almost? Is it us trying to find magic in the real world itself?
Wow, man. Look at you.
Well,
Look at you. Da-da, tenure. All right. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, man. I mean, in a way,
That was good.
when you name something, it loses a bit of its magic, man. But
That was really good.
I think there is something, right? Like, I like the toad is the wart on the body Pan's Labyrinth. It's the least interesting bit. But again, it's this, she has that great line, right? You just sit down here getting fat while the tree withers and dies around you. It's like, could that possibly be the fascist fucking choking Mother Spain at the roots? You're like, all right, I'm down with that. Finds a key.
For sure.
Gets the chalk door, right? And she goes down. Okay, there is a weird part of the fantasy of this movie, right? So the book is her guide through this fantasy world, right? It leads her to the tree. It leads her to the mission with the fucking guy who has the scrotum arms.
Right. The Pale Man.
The Pale Man.
Which, again, it's Doug Jones, man. He's
Doug
amazing.
Jones. God, so good in this movie.
Ball State.
Ball State represent, chirp, motherfucker. The only school that would possibly give one of us tenure, to go back to the other joke.
Call back.
No, why does the book show her the blood of her mother? I thought that was a really weird decision this time around.
Really?
Because it's bringing automatically into focus the world that is real and not part of this fantasy quest. And alerts her earlier. It could have sent her on an adventure, and maybe she's out of the house, the mom passed away, and she's freed up to do her journey. Why show all the blood?
You mean why does the story show?
Why does the book show her the blood, right? Because most of the rest of it is about her quest into the fantasy realm.
I assume, for me, that it is to address the fantasy of the story itself. Like, not everything can, like, stories that have an absurd amount of fantasy in them, even stories like Peter Pan, which is about literally people who a boy who never wants to grow up that flies to another place so he doesn't have to. Like, no matter what, these stories have to be based somewhere in the real world, somewhere in real tragedy, somewhere in real time. We have to have there is some sort of sacrifice, but also, like, to make them fantasy, to make these things work, there has to be the escape element. And, like, to me, it's not only an escape element, but also addressing what has to happen. It's almost like it's that it's going to happen. Like, Ophelia knows she's sick. There's no way it can't happen. But it's almost like it's not even softening the blow. It's almost like it's addressing the real world to a child. It's like having to sit your kid down and explain to them death. Like, it's a whole thing.
Yeah, you want to know a really uncomfortable and horrible way to get that out early? Buy your kids fish. Neither here nor there. No, I think there is because as the movie unfurls, and at the end we actually see, I mean, I guess you could debate, right? We see when the Capitan chases her down through the maze, right? And he comes around the corner. The Faun isn't there, right? And so I guess as a viewer, you still have the out that, well, of course he can't see it. That's a man who has not had magic or whimsy for a long time, right? But to me, I read it as there is no fucking story, right? This is Ophelia being caught playing her game and nothing's there.
I assume that none of this is real. Like, to be honest,
well,
with
the fact
like,
that she cliffhangers her way up from Scrotum Arms, right? Mitch McConnell's office down there, and just fucking hoist herself up, right? You're like, all right, like there's always whimsy, right? But in these moments, right, there's a lot of visual, right?
But Guillermo del Toro always blurs that line so much that you're not quite sure. And then there is this element of like,
here's the beat that I love though in the fucking Mitch McConnell's office. I love that this fucking, Scrotum Arms is sitting there. He's like, I had to sit here and chill, right, at my feast. He's like, hey, man, could we hire some painters to, like, paint some awesome pictures of me eating children?
Yeah, can we paint some pictures of me just housing children? Great.
It'd be the equivalent of in the real world, some fucking child molester just shows up at, like, a van shop. He's like, hey, can you just put, like, diddler on the side of my van in like big bright letters?
This isn't the real world. It's literally, that's why no one goes to Mitch McConnell's office. That is exactly what. Politics.
Obstructionism, am I right? What a bitch. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just saying his face area looks like
talk about infrastructure. Yes, he does.
Tenure. No, that's we're just men of the mind. We're men of the mind. That's the problem.
We're pretty scholarly today.
Yeah, super fucking smart, bruh. But no, I just like the idea. It reminded me of in Child's Play when we get to go to Charles Lee Ray's house, and he has that picture of himself, and he's like, hey, can you just give me like a to-the-knee dong? And they're like, yeah, of course. Like, that's probably a realistic example of what your body looks like. Just ripped muscles and a fucking hammer to the knee.
Right.
Because that's the thing that people get to have in this life. I thought it was funny that he's like, hey, just in case a child happens to wander in here and like fruit, if you could paint a picture that would horrify them out of the room as fast as possible. I just thought that shit was hilarious.
Yes.
But, again, that's the captain's table. She doesn't want to be at that table eating the fucking food that is stolen from so many, right? All the fruit is crimson red, right? The blood of the people in the nation. It's wonderful, man. Like, you get a lot of this cool stuff. I also forgot her name was Princess Moana, so as a parent, I had, like, PTSD flashbacks.
You did?
Dude.
Singing You're Welcome. And
you know what hurts me the most is that my son Hunter is aged enough. He does not remember Moana. Like, if I put on You're Welcome, he's like, oh, yeah. When he was born, I had Movie Pass. It was the only way to get him to calm down. I would go every fucking single day to like the nap time showing, and we would sleep in Moana.
Do you remember I remember us going to Moana at the Burbank 16. We went and saw it.
That's right. Go every day because they took Movie Pass.
You were pissed. You were pissed though the one time we went because somebody brought like two moms brought like their brood.
Yeah.
And they just fucking would not stop the entire time. And like Hunter but I also remember that Hunter would sing You're Welcome before we'd record. Like he would do like 15 rounds. It is the cutest thing.
Yeah, and it's cool. But like as a parent, like I have flashbacks of the Moana like wars. And like my kid doesn't even remember them. I'm like, God, that is mean. That is mean. It'll be scarred in my mind forever, but you just get to walk away. But I like all of those beats, right? And I think that the finale, I mean, it just pays off in one of the most devastating endings I've ever seen in a movie, right?
Right.
So she drugs the captain. She's going to go, save her brother, right? She goes to the maze. Mercedes sees the fucking little door she drew that isn't open, right? It's just fucking awesome, right? So as they're attacking and, it's all burning to hell, right? The captain is drugged. He's chasing him out to the labyrinth. She gets there, right? And the Faun has the dagger. Give me your brother, right? I just need a drop of his blood. She doesn't buy into that, right? And it, he does the portal will only open if we offer it the blood of an innocent. And she's just like, wherever I go, my brother will go. The Faun is like giving it to her, right? All right, as you wish, your highness. And he backs away. As the captain comes lumbering up to her. And he takes the baby. And you're like, all right, we're cool. Like, run away. He fucking lifts his gun and fucking blast Ophelia.
I
And every time I watch it, there's a moment where you go, no, no.
Yeah,
And when
without
she lifts
fail.
her hand, it never doesn't bring me to weeping every time I've seen this.
without fucking fail. Every
It's
single
as
time I see
stone
this.
fucking cold of a move. He has the kid. Just fucking
He's
walk
won.
away. He just wants to punish this girl. And it's the worst. It's a fucking horrifying moment. And it's just, yeah, it never loses it, right?
No.
And
I mean, the whole...
what we find is that she is the blood of the innocent, right? So in her dying eyes, right, she goes, and we get this Wizard of Oz shot, right? She's in the fucking palace with her red shoes, and her parents are sitting on these eggs. I'm like, is there a ladder up there? Do you have cherubs that float your ass up there? Right? It's the doctor and her mom. I'm like, how does this work? Is this like Wipeout where you jump off of a fucking big red ball and fly up there? Like, how do you get to that chair? Whatever, you got a chair. You got an empty chair for you. It's fine. And they applaud her, right? Like, your father's been waiting for you for a long time, right? That's kind of our clue. Oh, her father's dead. Yeah. And what we find is that was the final test, right? That the Faun comes out and he's like, you pass, right? Had you given us the blood of your brother, you would no longer be innocent, right? You'd be this horrible person. And you're like, all right, the last thing we see is that wonderful room, right? The audience is allowed to continue believing in the fable. Mm-hmm. And it's super fucking sweet, man. And then we do this wonderful color-soaked fucking royal chamber, right? To the hardest cut. Ugh. With just these no colors of Ophelia smiling and bleeding out as Mercedes weeps and hums the lullaby. And it's just fucking unbearable. And what I think is so cool is that he's able to put us through that because it's so very earned.
Yeah, I mean, it's
fucking, I mean, it's one of those things. It's like, that's why I think this movie didn't win the Oscar and Shape of Water did. Shape of Water allows that last storybook moment, right? That they could have swam away together. Well, this one does not. And it puts you in the, no one wins this. There's no happy ending to this fucking fairy tale. We do get to see a tree blossom, but who fucking cares about a blossom? Fuck that tree. I want Ophelia to blossom, man. It's
just one of those things where,
man.
It is interesting to watch a filmmaker learn, not from a mistake, but learn from a choice that, because look, I mean, it's a fucking beautiful earned moment in a story that is like filled with whimsy and
again,
real brutality.
You just said a beautiful moment when it's about as horrendous a thing as you've ever seen on screen.
I know, and
that's the trick, man.
It shouldn't be this like lovely moment, but I think that is why we're doing this month. Like, Guillermo del Toro finds true beauty in the macabre, and he's never shied away from that. Like, we all know that that's the case, but this particularly is just so, it's not even the violence. And like, to me, that's never the thing that gets me. Like, obviously shooting children is horrifying. Like, that always will disturb me.
It's hard because like a part of me has never forgiven him for that scene. You know what?
But because this is the thing, though, and because I think The Shape of Water is a really interesting analog to this, because The Shape of Water does do that thing.
Healed,
commits,
kiss underwater.
It commits to this. It commits to this. It commits to the oddity of the world, and I think that's what. While Pan's Labyrinth is beautiful. Pan's Labyrinth commits to is the reality. And I think that's what makes Guillermo del Toro's movies like Shape of Water particularly so, and I mean, even like Pacific Rim. So they commit so deeply to fantasy and to like the happy ending, essentially, with an earned death and that kind of stuff. This one is so, we're happy that Ophelia's gone to see her father. we are sad because Ophelia had to die to do it. And that is
Yeah.
that is truly the gut-wrenching thing about Guillermo del Toro making movies, is that he just takes you in and shows you amazing things, and then but he knows in this movie particularly, he has to pull the rug out from under us. It's important, because otherwise we'll get through a movie and have not learned it.
Yeah, where I settled on it is, I think in that final moment when she smiles, man, it kind of, the first time I saw it, it felt like he was just wiggling the knife in my belly. And I was like, you rat bastard. And it's really hard, and you get fucking mad and frustrated. Like, why do I have to see her get hurt like that?
Right.
When she smiles, though, I think that's a moment for us as the audience to remind ourselves of the power of these stories, right? Is that she wasn't too old to fill her head with nonsense, because maybe her loving Mercedes led to giving Mercedes that little extra bit of power she needed, which led to the doctor having a little bit more fortitude, right? Her being able to survive that horrifying scene where we hear a baby crying and them telling her that her mom's gone, right? When she begs her brother, like, when you come out, don't hurt her. But because of her love of these stories and tales, she's able to put that aside and still love this brother and not give him up to the magic that she cherishes, right? That in that moment, we see that her strength and belief in a better world brought this to where we are, right? And it's not a great happy ending, but we have at least a small hope that the world will heal, right? Thus that fucking flower that no one wants. But it's just fucking, it's very rare that a guy can do that to you and you not have like a visceral anger reaction at him.
I mean,
you go, I needed that one, man, and it's fine.
Look, I love all his movies. It's his best one by far, man.
This one is something so extra magical, right? Like, to me, this and Shape of Water are a two-hander, where it's fantasy in the harshest, most terrible reaction or version of the world, and then fantasy and romance in a bad world, but not as fucking horrible. I think maybe the Gilman and the deaf janitor lady would disagree with me. But this one is just so much more fucking brutal that I think his heart shines through in a strange way. One more final thing before we get out of here. We're not experts, guys, but we'll do what everyone who talks about this movie probably does and just gush over Mitch McConnell and the Faun makeup. I mean, it's fucking breathtaking.
Yeah,
when the Faun first unfurls himself,
it's amazing.
I mean, it is breathtaking still to this day every time I see it.
This is the part of Guillermo del Toro movies that, like, you don't need to talk about on podcasts because we already fucking know.
Everyone who's seen this movie was like, holy shit. When his hands go on his eyes, that's fucking rad. I wish he would stop blocking votes, but man, that looks
Come on. That deadlock's killing me, but man, it does look good. Yeah. There's one thing I forgot about.
It's the no chin. That's why it's a McConnell. He has no chin, that fucking guy.
Well, that mouth is just...
That little tiny mouth and no chin, whatever.
The one thing I forgot about on this viewing is when the pale man is walking towards her, the sound of his legs,
and he also puts the hand out. Well, also he's got those fucking just straight bone legs.
Yeah.
So those had to be done in post.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But just or did they? I don't know. I do have
no one has legs that skinny.
Maybe Doug Jones made his legs that skinny.
I'm method now.
He would be. I did have one thing I was reading. Sergei Lopez, the guy who actually plays Captain Vidal, when Guillermo del Toro cast him, so he's a Spanish actor, and the Madrid-based producers told Guillermo del Toro, you are not going to get the performance you need out of him. It's a bad casting. And he's like, why would you say that? And he's like, because he is known for being a melodramatic or comedic actor only. He does not do a movie like this.
No shit.
And Guillermo del Toro told the producers, It's not that I don't know, it's that I don't care. And that was it.
And just, I mean, a bad guy for the ages.
That is Guillermo del Toro right there. It's not that I don't know, it's that I don't care.
That's knowing your craft right there.
That's
baby.
a fucking director right there.
I mean, hey man, we've been on this a long time. We talked about how cool the effects were. I mean, this movie is just a movie that is fascinating and endlessly
go watch it.
Inspiring on just every fucking plane of filmmaking. I hope you guys enjoyed this film as much as I did. Guillermo, I'll shoot this one to you personally. I'm sure you're listening and fascinated with what we're doing,
yes.
man. If you want that drink and you want to write me some pages, sir, I'm ready. Hit me up. All right, guys. We're almost done with the Pod Digs Del Toro month, but not quite. Guys, we still have the fan-selected vote for next week's episode. So get those votes in. Let us know what you want to hear us talk about for our final Del Toro. Guys, again, the Patreon is Film Alchemist Pod at patreon.com. Make sure you go over there for as little as $1 a month, guys. You can get in, help support the show. Again, that's patreon.com/Film Alchemist Pod. Guys, make sure you email us, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, Film Alchemist. We're easy to get a hold of. We love to hear from you guys. We will see you next week as the pod finishes digging Del Toro.